West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
I've been very eager to talk to you about so many things about this confirmation, including, of course, the most overused two words in any confirmation hearing, judicial philosophy. Let's begin there, because you alone during the hearings pointed out the absurdity of the very concept of judicial philosophy.
So let me just tee this up by pointing out that the last three Supreme Court judicial selections made by President Trump were picked by this dark money network. So when the Republicans are letting this dark money network pick their selections, then of course they're also letting them pick their objections. So where does it turn out that all this judicial philosophy talk, we heard the word 50 times in the hearings. It comes from a little group of groups that all share the same address, called Independent Women's Forum, Independent Women's Voice, Independent Women's Law Center. It's very attached to Leonard Leo, who's done all the judge picking, and his pair of front groups, 85 Fund and Concord Fund, which are funded by the Kochs and their foundations and the Bradley Foundation. And it was run by a Koch lobbyist for years, while she also ran Americans for Prosperity, the big Koch brothers political mothership. And surprise, surprise, in one of these organizations, you will find none other than Senator Hawley's spouse working. And they directed everyone, actually before Judge Jackson was even named. It is important that you focus not on the selection process or on the nominees' paper qualifications, but rather on the need to learn more about the nominees, and this is italics and bold, judicial philosophy. So that comes straight out of swamp dark money talking points. And you see the same thing with the sexual predators angle on her child pornography sentencing. That came out of another front group with all sorts of creepy ties, including to the legendary Cleta Mitchell. And the guy who runs that one was Ted Cruz's Oppo guy in Cruz for President. So you've got Hawley and Cruz who are saying these things with like family members and staff feeding stuff to them from these dark money groups. If it weren't so sickening, it would be funny.
Let's go to that point about the possession of child pornography cases. This is a very simple objection to state, if you have it, as a member of the committee, to say there are 3, in some cases, some point to 4, child pornography cases where I wish the prison sentences you gave, because you did give prison sentences in all of them, I wish those prison sentences were longer. Now, that's how long it takes to state that. They spent hours doing it, and you showed very clearly at the committee that the reason this never came up a year ago at her last confirmation process for the Circuit Court of Appeals was because the dark money world had not put together this file for them to hand to them.
Yep. I mean, do you actually think Ted Cruz was running around in that elementary school library, pulling books off shelves, looking for something offensive? No, this stuff gets fed to them. And in this case, it was his old Oppo guy who was doing some of the research.
And this was enough to flip Lindsey Graham, who a year ago, when all of these issues were present, because all the issues they're talking about happened when she was at the trial court, and not, I didn't hear, correct me if I'm wrong, in all of the hours of hearings, I did not hear one mention of a single thing she has done as an appeals court judge that was raised by a Republican as an objection in this proceeding.
No, I mean, the focus was entirely on the child porn thing. They were obsessed with the child porn thing. And they really misled the public about what was going on in all of that, because their points were that she sentenced below the sentencing guidelines, where you can ask essentially any federal judge, the two worst sentencing guidelines are the crack versus powder cocaine disparity and this one. So it's absolutely common for judges to sentence below it because it hasn't been adapted for the internet age. And the second thing that they do is they pretend that the government is the only entity in the room. But at a sentencing, you've got the government and you've got the defense counsel, who a judge has an obligation to listen to and treat seriously. And you've got the probation department, an arm of the court, making its own sentencing recommendation. And they rather conveniently left out all of that and argued that she was sentencing below what the government recommended. Well, the government customarily makes the harshest recommendation, so that's no surprise either. So they set up a false frame into which to put her decisions in order to make them look like they were extraordinary when they're not.
It is Tuesday, the 5th of April of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Well, it's Tuesday, and I would ask how you're doing, because I would. You know how I'm doing? I'll tell you how I'm doing. Apparently, Elon Musk has a majority stake now in Twitter, and he's one good thing. Apparently, they say one good thing is that he is really a purist about free speech. He's such a purist. He's being sued for apartheid at his Tesla factories. That's how much he's into. Well, that's how pure he is about free speech. All right. Well, Twitter was fun to while it lasted. We had our issues with Jack. No, let's be clear, we did. But Alan, or Elon, is that it? How you pronounce it? Elon. All I know is that he's the heir to Blood Emeralds, and the proceeds from that, gave him a leg up. He rose from, pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. Yeah, well, it's pretty good when your bootstraps are, from Gucci. Okay, that's the least of our worries, because we still have a war going on, and it looks like, and I told everybody in the very beginning, this is Vladimir Putin declaring war on the world, and when he means the world, he means the United States of America. He's not really fighting Ukraine. Oh, yeah, he's got some sort of, I guess it's a racial animosity. Anybody who says that, well, those people aren't human, I don't know, what is that? And to eliminate them is genocide. So, there's a bit of animosity, granted, that he has against Ukraine and always has. But really, let's be clear. Ukraine is proxy for the United States. If only the people in the United States had as much, I don't know, grit as the Ukrainians do. It's scary thinking that here we would have about 70-some million joining Vlad's side. And last I checked, they do have the majority of the guns and weaponry in the United States right now. Though their numbers be about a third, let's be clear about that also. They are the constant, toxic third. They still have most of the weapons, which we all said, that's not a Second Amendment right. That's you amassing an armory so that you can take over the United States of America in a violent coup, and they did. They did. Tried. Some speculation on whether it's worked, but, we all are aware it's ongoing. It doesn't just stop. Especially when you had, oh, God, that's the other thing. I was getting so angry I had to turn the television off from the hearing, the speeches for Ketanji Brown Jackson. I had to. It was getting me very angry because I sure don't understand how people who took part in an insurrection, who continue to, shall we say, practice sedition, are allowed to be on the judiciary. I'm looking at you, Ted Cruz. Oh, yes, of course, we cannot forget Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton. Can't forget those either, but boy, that Ted Cruz, he's such a weasel. He actually thought that if he took part in this insurrection, knowing how Trump F's everything up, that Ted would be perfectly positioned to become president of the United States. That's his thinking. Talk about opportunists. Jeez. And I gotta say also, this obsession with child sex, it's a bit unbecoming because, look, the only groomers that we're aware of come from their side. Well, that's wrong, I know. Child sexual abuse knows no party affiliation. But there's only one party that's trying to make child brides legal. Yeah, they're trying to do away with minimum age requirements for girls to get married. Is this Afghanistan? I don't know. What are we? What the hell is that? Well, part of it is that the GOP, the repugs, they know that that's going to get liberals mad. And that's all they really want to do is get liberals mad. Well, that's not all they want to do, but they find particular glee in it. About as much glee as Vlad has attacking Ukraine, shall we say. And, Vlad goes a little crazy when things don't go his way. What do? I don't know. Give it up, I guess. I think we need to be a bit more forceful in our politics, okay? I'm not into slapping people across the face, but I will say that what happened yesterday at Judiciary seemed like a slap across the face by the GOP. Slapped Lady Liberty right across the face, and Judge Jackson. They all but called her a child sex abuser. Oh my God. And then right around that same time, I come across some weird story that somebody's saying that Hunter Biden put M&Ms on his crotch or something. What is this? So it makes me kind of think that, I don't know, there's a basement at a Willy Wonka candy factory, and I think the sex grooming for the kids is happening there. And it ain't Hunter Biden. And now I came across just before we started something about Ron Klain. asking Hunter to help on the vice president residence. I don't quite understand what this is about, other than the fact that the Trump kids are so absolutely corrupt they can't run a charity anywhere in the United States. Anywhere. I don't know. How do you get all those trademarks from China? How does that happen? Okay. And all they got about Hunter is that, oh, wow, some people bought some, like, really, they paid a big price for those paintings. Well, so, you know how hard it is to sell art? And for a price, more power to them. I mean, we artists might be a little upset, but hey, you know, if that's the case, I would have got upset long ago when people who had no business writing poetry were writing poetry and making money at it just because they were famous in some other medium. Some famous actor, I'm going to write a book of poetry, and it was shit. Excuse my French, but it was. But he actually made money. Who makes money on poetry in America? Jeez. Anyway, we have all this going on while these war crimes are being committed by Vladimir Putin, and we have fifth columnists in this country active right now in making sure that they fifth column the United States into nothingness. That's their job. That's why they're fifth columnists. Okay. I could joke around and say, well, we got that going for us, which is not so nice. No, it's not. I just don't quite understand. You know, we were a lot more, shall we say, forceful in times past when we were threatened militarily by military superpowers of the day. I know the German Bund lasted for quite a while, but it's not as if they had their tabs being kept on them. And when German spies came to the United States on a submarine off the East Coast, 3 of them were put to death, executed as spies. Okay, well, we have folk working at Fox News right now that seem to be doing the work of Vlad, if not the whole Fox apparatus. How is it that Rupert Murdoch still has a broadcasting license after all that's gone on? I mean, should have lost it when they were advocating Alex Jones BS about Sandy Hook. I could be exaggerating a bit, but yeah, they kind of floated the idea that maybe it wasn't as serious. Unbelievable. Absolute ghouls. And what better strategy than for Vladimir Putin to help push the idea that everybody in America has to have a gun? But rational people know that's stupid, so they don't get them. And the irrational people buy all that there is, and then America is at war with itself, and that's doing Vlad's work, isn't it? What political group and party is absolutely determined to change America into their image? Well, okay. Let's be intellectually honest. Of course we want to change or, change America for the good. And we think that our side is good. I know the other side thinks that they're equally as good. But I don't know. How is that? How is hate good? They say that we are the haters. What do we hate? Bigotry, bullying, violence. I don't know, murder. Yeah, they hate murder too. Okay. But they always got to couch it into like some sort of racial thing. Yeah, we hate murder, especially when black people are murdering people like us. When you pick up the news and it seems like there's sure a lot of white people getting arrested for murder, but no one's getting up in arms about, oh, we got to stop Section 9 housing for them. No, they won't. So this whole judiciary spectacle was really the GOP, who I like to call the repugs, throwing down the gauntlet. There will be no Democratic nominees that will have bipartisan support. We already have the bipartisan support because we got Romney, Murkowski, and Collins. Now, I got to tell you, the vote's not in. And you know Susan Collins, she's always wanted to sort of change her mind at the last minute. Oh, I just can't bring myself to vote for her. We'll see. But apparently we don't need Kamala's vote in this. But we do have it, don't we? As long as we keep Manchin and Sinema on board, they could be the fly in the ointment. In fact, they could be the fly in the ointment now. That's why we need Susan Collins to stay on board. Unbelievable. But anyway, what better person to use as your whipping gal than the black lady? When all that you're really doing is throwing down the gauntlet, saying, this is how it's going to work. I loved how Lindsey Graham was saying, when we get back in office, we're going to do this and this, as if they had never done any of the things that they accuse us of doing. We didn't hold up any nominations. He talked about the black lady judge back in the day that was filibustered. She wasn't even nominated to the Supreme Court. Give me a break. They're all arguing, oh, you could have had history made then. Well, first of all, she was kind of batshit right-wing crazy. They were upset because we said that Bork was not qualified for the court. Of course, Bork was the one who, signed the Saturday Night Massacre papers. So, hey, yeah, of course we don't want him on the court. What do you... This is the way they work. Oh, my God. They'll give us the murderer, okay? We know this guy murdered all of your friends and stuff, but you got to put him on the team. What? Jeez. As long as it is kicking the libs. Okay, I know it's more than just kicking the libs. It seems like a bit more nefarious, especially when you have multinational, and I put the emphasis on the multinational corporations, who apparently have no loyalty to any government. They blow where the wind blows. Or are they just blowing the wind themselves and trying to, I don't know, maybe that's getting too much into the Rothschilds and the Templars. We got to be careful about that. But Hillary was right back in the day. It is a vast right-wing conspiracy. We knew exactly what she was talking about. She was talking about the Heritage Foundation. She was talking about the Federalist Society. She was talking about the Birchers. She's talking about Leonard Leo, etc. Talking about Newt Gingrich and his contract on America. Yeah, we're going to put a contract on America. And I think that because we thought that extending a hand in comity across the aisle would be the good thing to do, it is the good thing to do, but it didn't do any good. We should have figuratively slapped the Nazis when we had the chance. Now we got to punch the Nazis. We could have done it nice. Relatively. Now it looks like it's going to be rough. Okay. Rolling down the river. What's on the rest of the menu here? Yeah, all sorts of weird associations in the morning. I need more coffee. Okay, on the rest of the menu here, as we started off, at the top, the Republican obsession with Judge Brown Jackson's judicial philosophy is just an example of swamp dark money talking points. Like a vast right-wing conspiracy. Then on the rest of the menu, California advanced a bill allowing private citizens to sue anyone who distributes illegal assault weapons, ghost guns, or .50 caliber rifles. Yeah, that's kind of turning the Texas law on its head. I like it. Amazon's first ever union overcame numerous hurdles, but now faces new ones. Did you see the list of words that the employee chat app won't allow now? You can't use terms like slave labor, the bathroom. You can't use the term the bathroom. I wonder if it means you can't use the bathroom. Yeah, no wonder Mackenzie divorced that asshat. No wonder. And an American Library Association study found challenges to ban books soared in 2021. In fact, it's in 2021 it was greater than in the whole 20 years. The American Library Association has been tracking the movement to ban books. All right. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Russia was urged to stop using landmines in its war in Ukraine, like Russia would even care. And updated World Health Organization guidelines show 99% of the world's population breathes poor quality air. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Radio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who will be at Netroots Nation this year in person. Oh, yeah. First time in 2 years that Netroots Nation will have in-person Netroots Nationing. So stay tuned as we come upon that date, and Kelly will be there in person for our usual Netroots Radio, Netroots Nation interviews, and the spectacle as it is. So stay tuned for that. If you would look across the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com, near the bottom of our homepage, to the left is the chat room link. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and if you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink or two once a month, it will really help us, because I know the pandemic's been rough, and inflation and price gouging and all that is rough. But, yeah, we need a little bit of help ourselves. So if you're able, we would like you to help. So send what you might spend on one or two coffee drinks a month to us. We stretch those dollars beyond compare. That allows us then to pay our bills, and then we are able to fly under the radar and continue this powerhouse of resistance against dark forces arrayed against not only the United States of America, but representative democracy worldwide. And I'm not kidding. So thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos, incidentally. And then I get that incidentally posted up on Twitter about 10 minutes before showtime is when it gets posted on Daily Kos. Whether I get it there before showtime, that's another question. But do look for the show notes and links. That, of course, is where the real reportage is. And sometimes we abbreviate the articles and they get rather involved. So do check out those longer stories. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at Cookbook West. and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, really wherever podcasts can be found. And of course, the whole of the Netroots Radio library over all these many 11 years to be exact can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Gee, I'm having trouble talking today. More coffee. Yeah, that's always the excuse, isn't it? Always. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Don Thompson. For all California's nation-leading attempts to regulate firearms, the state has found a way to deter those happy to skirt the laws with stolen or homemade and increasingly prevalent ghost guns. In just two recent examples, police say the first weapon recovered after gunmen killed 6 people and wounded 12 in downtown Sacramento early Sunday had been stolen. The homemade assault weapon a father used a month ago and a few miles away to kill his 3 daughters, their chaperone, and then himself, was also unregistered. The latest mass shooting in a nightclub area blocks from the state capitol renewed calls for tougher firearms from President Joe Biden. Biden called for Congress to take many of the steps nationwide that California already has in place, imposing background checks, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and outlawing ghost guns. The most populous state will consider an innovative new approach today when Hertzberg, who is a state senator at the urging of Governor Gavin Newsom, expects to take the first step to advance a bill allowing private citizens to sue anyone who distributes illegal assault weapons, parts that can be used to build weapons, guns without serial numbers, or 50 caliber rifles. The penalty, at least $10,000 in civil damages for each weapon plus attorney fees. But the bill would not bar anyone from possessing or using the weapons, though they're illegal under other laws, and it would not include stolen weapons unless they are otherwise made illegal, for instance, by filing off the serial number. Hertzberg bill is patterned after a similar Texas law allowing citizens to go after those who provide or assist in providing abortions, and even if it becomes law, Hertzberg's bill will automatically be invalidated if the Texas law is eventually ruled unconstitutional. This is a tit-for-tat political gamesmanship, which is the worst reason to be passing some kind of a bill, said Chuck Michel, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association, and an attorney who wrote a book about California's complicated gun laws. You're going to deputize a bunch of amateurs, non-lawyers, non-cops, to judge a neighbor's actions and then give them the right to drag them into court over it. Well, yeah. Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, which generally favors firearms restrictions, has not taken a position on the bill. The center's state policy director, attorney Ari Freilich, said that it would essentially bring more enforcement oversight to some specific criminal laws in California. It's not something that's really been tried before. Well, he wouldn't predict if it would be effective, but said the proposal has some potential challenges. Among them is encouraging civil actions to punish crimes and establishing a bounty to be collected by those who haven't been directly harmed. His organization is backing other bills, including one that would make it easier for people to sue gun companies for liability in shootings that cause injuries or deaths. 2 other bills also target firearm parts and guns without serial numbers and those made with 3D printers. Legislative analysts also raised concerns, including that California's bill might be seen as legitimizing Texas' approach. Really? I just love how that works. Much like the Texas law, the analyst said Hertzberg's legislation is written so broadly that it might, for instance, ensnare a taxi driver that takes a person to a gun shop, though Hertzberg said that is not the intent. Parts used to make weapons are not themselves illegal, but a California law taking effect on July 1st will require that they be sold only through licensed firearms dealers. The bill would then have to clear 2 other committees before getting a full Senate vote. It would also have to pass the Assembly before going to Newsom. Hertzberg said he thinks his bill could also help root out dangerous domestic abusers like David Mora. That was the guy who killed his 3 daughters and their chaperone at a church. Investigators said Mora used a homemade semi-automatic rifle-style weapon with an illegal 30-round ammunition magazine to kill his daughters at a Sacramento church on February 28th, despite a restraining order barring him from possessing weapons. And I know the gun nuts will say, well, he got the gun illegally. Why do we need laws? Because he got the gun illegally, we need the laws. Offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is also out of the Associated Press, this time by Hallelujah Hedero and Annie Dinocenzio. When a scrappy group of former and current warehouse workers on Staten Island, New York, went head-to-head with Amazon in a union election, many compared it to a David and Goliath battle. David won, and the stunning upset on Friday brought sudden exposure to the organizers and worker advocates who realized victory for a nascent Amazon labor union when so many other more established labor groups had failed before them, including most recently in Bessemer, Alabama. Initial results in that election show the retail, wholesale, and department store union down by 110 votes, with the majority of Amazon warehouse workers in Bessemer rejecting a bid to form a union. The final outcome is still up in the air, with 416 outstanding challenged ballots hanging in the balance. A hearing to review the ballots is expected to begin in a few weeks. Chris Smalls, a fired Amazon worker who heads the ALU, has been critical of the RWSDU's campaign, saying it didn't have enough local support. Instead, he chose an independent path, believing workers organizing themselves would be more effective and undercut Amazon's narrative that third-party groups were driving union efforts. They were not perceived as outsiders, so that's important, said Ruth Milkman, a sociologist of labor and labor movements at the City University of New York. While the odds were stacked against both union drives, with organizers facing off against a deep-pocketed retailer with an uninterrupted track record of keeping unions out of its U.S. operations, ALU was decidedly underfunded and understaffed compared to the Retail Workers Union. Small said as of early March, ALU had raised and spent about $100,000 and was operating on a week-to-week budget. The group doesn't have its own office space and was relying on community groups and 2 unions to lend a hand. Legal help came from a lawyer offering pro bono assistance. Meanwhile, Amazon exercised all its might to fend off the organizing efforts, routinely holding mandatory meetings with workers to argue why unions are a bad idea. In a filing released last week, the company disclosed it spent about $4.2 million last year on labor consultants, who organizers say Amazon hired to persuade workers not to unionize. Outmatched financially, Smalls and others relied on their ability to reach workers more personally by making TikTok videos, giving out free pot, and holding barbecues and cookouts. A few weeks before the election, Smalls' aunt cooked up soul food for a union potluck, including macaroni and cheese, collard greens, ham, and baked chicken. Another pro-union worker got her neighbor to prepare jollof rice, a West African dish organizers believed would help them make inroads with immigrant employees at the warehouse. Kate Andreas, professor of law at Columbia U and an expert in labor law, noted a successful union, whether it is local or national, always has to be built by the workers themselves. There was a clearer illustration of this, Andreas said. This was a clearer illustration of this, Andreas said. The workers did this on their own. Amazon's own missteps may have also contributed to the election outcome on Staten Island. Bert Flickinger III, a managing director at the consulting firm Strategic Resource Group, said derogatory comments by a company executive leaked from a internal meeting calling Smalls not smart or articulate and wanting to make him the face of the entire union organizing movement backfired. It came out as condescending, and it helped to galvanize workers, said Flickinger, who consults with big labor unions. In another example, Smalls and two organizers were arrested in February after authorities got a complaint about him trespassing at the Staten Island warehouse. The ALU said the used the arrest to its advantage days before the union election, teaming up with an art collective to project "They arrested your co-workers" in white letters on top of the warehouse. They fired someone you know, another projection said. Experts note it's difficult to know how much ALU's grassroots nature contributed to his victory when compared with the Retail Workers Union. Unlike New York, Alabama is a right-to-work state that prohibits a company and a union from signing a contract that requires workers to pay dues to the union that represents them. Despite some friction between the labor groups in the lead-up to the elections, both have adopted a friendlier public relationship in the past few days. Applebaum praised Smalls during last Thursday's press conference, calling him a charismatic, smart, dedicated leader. Likewise, Smalls offered the Retail Workers Union words of encouragement after their initial election loss. Hillel Atali of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Deborah Caldwell-Stone, director of the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom, has never been so busy. A year ago, we might have been receiving one, maybe two reports a day about a book being challenged at a library, and usually those calls would be for guidance on how to handle a challenge or for materials that support the value of the work being challenged, Caldwell Stone told the AP. Now we're getting 3, 4, 5 reports a day, many in need of support and some in need of a great deal of support. We're on the phone constantly, she added. Accounts of book bannings and attempted book bannings, along with threats against librarians, have soared over the past year, and the ALA has included some numbers in its annual State of America's Libraries report. The association found 729 challenges affecting nearly 1,600 books at public schools and libraries in 2021, more than double 2020's figures and the highest since the American Library Association began compiling challenges more than 20 years ago. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit. However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Child care, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In March of 1830, when Abraham Lincoln was 21 years old, his family went west in quest of a better life. Their destination was the fertile farmland near Decatur in Macon County, Illinois. Lincoln, however, soon moved away from his family to New Salem, Illinois, where he studied law by reading legal texts on his own, pursued political interests, and won election to the Illinois State Legislature in 1834. He served 4 two-year terms. Abraham Lincoln was largely self-taught, having less than 1 year of formal education. Nevertheless, in 1836, Lincoln acquired a license to practice law, and the following year moved to Springfield, Illinois, the new state capital, where he prospered as a politician and lawyer. In 1842, Lincoln married the socially prominent Mary Todd, and from 1843 to 1853, they had 4 sons. In 1846, Lincoln won election to the U.S. House of Representatives. However, his outspoken criticism of President James Polk for leading the nation to war with Mexico turned public opinion against him. So, he left Congress at the end of his 2-year term and temporarily withdrew from politics. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1954. It began what some have called the longest major strike in U.S. labor history. The strike was against Kohler, the Wisconsin-based manufacturer of bathroom fixtures. 2 years before the strike, the workers had formed Local 833 as part of the United Auto Workers. They wanted the right to join the union of their choice, improved wages, and recognition of seniority. When the company refused to bargain in good faith, the members voted to strike. On the first day of the strike, 3,000 workers marched around the plant. Few could have imagined when they walked off the job that many of them would not return for 6 years or even longer. The Kohler Company remained unwilling to negotiate. As the days turned to weeks, then into months, sometimes violence broke out between the scabs and the strikers. But what sustained the strikers was the strong sense of solidarity and community they built together. One pamphlet produced by the union had a picture of a baby on the cover. Above the baby was written, "All my life, my daddy's been on strike to make my future better." Finally, in 1960, the National Labor Relations Board ruled that the company had not followed bargaining laws. It ordered the company to let 1,400 striking workers return to work and to pay back wages. Another 6 years would pass before the issue of payment would be resolved. But in the end, the company had to pay $3 million in back pay and another $1.5 million in pension payments. At the 60-year commemoration of the strike, Local 833 President Dave Bosher declared, "I stand here in awe of the sacrifices of these people." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 38 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of about 57 to 58, currently under foggy conditions. Will be partly to mostly cloudy throughout the day with winds light and variable. We had about a half an inch of rain yesterday, so that was good. Looks like clear skies tonight with lows in the mid-30s, winds light and variable, and mainly sunny tomorrow with highs in the mid-70s, winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus continue to rise in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon, where we now stand at 426,008 confirmed infections, and our deceased remain at 511. Looks like grass pollen is moderate right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index is good at 40 parts per million, and that daytime UV index has now inched up into the high range at level 6. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.39 inches. Visibility is down to 1.5 miles, and relative humidity is at 98%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that crowdsources from around the world. London is 58 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 56 and cloudy. Rome is 64 degrees and sunny. Kyiv is 44 and cloudy. Kabul is 65 and fair. Hong Kong is 70 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 55 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 68 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 51 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that crowdsources from around the world. Edith M. Lederer of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A top official in the global campaign against the use of landmines urged Russia to stop its troops in Ukraine from laying the weapons that too often kill and maim civilians. Alicia Arango Olmos, Colombia's ambassador to the UN in Geneva and this year's president of the state parties to the 1997 convention banning the production and use of landmines, expressed deep concerns that Russia is using landmines in its war in Ukraine. She pointed to Human Rights Watch, which said on March 29th that Ukrainian explosive ordnance disposal technicians located banned anti-personnel mines in the eastern Kharkiv region a day earlier. The rights group said Russia is known to possess the type of mines that were discovered, but Ukraine does not have them. Arango Olmos said at a news conference yesterday, Monday, the International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action, that Ukraine is one of the 164 state parties to the convention, but Russia is not.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Jamie Keaton of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The UN Health Agency says nearly everybody in the world breathes air that does not meet its standards for air quality, calling for more action to reduce fossil fuel use, which generates pollutants that cause respiratory and blood flow problems and leads to millions of preventable deaths each year. The World Health Organization, about 6 months after tightening its guidelines on air quality, yesterday, Monday, issued an update to its database on air quality that draws information from a growing number of cities, towns, and villages across the globe, now over 6,000 municipalities. WHO said 99% of the global population breathes air that exceeds its air quality limits and is often rife with particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs, enter the veins and arteries, and cause disease. Air quality is poorest in WHO's Eastern Mediterranean and Southeast Asian regions, followed by Africa, it said. The database, which has traditionally considered two types of particulate matter known as PM2.5 and PM10, for the first time has included ground measurements of nitrogen dioxide. The last version of the database was issued in 2018. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.